Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, it's our first ever Best and Worst of the Year show. We'll each be counting down our top 20 and worst 10 of 2013. We will return to our usual format next week with reviews of 47 Ronin, Grudge Match, and Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, and more. But this week, the only reviews we're going to have are going to be the triple feature, which includes new classic A Separation, old classic Hot Fuzz, and Oscar nominee 1943's Air Force. And since it is the best and worst of the year show, we thought we would wrap up with that portion and switch it up a little bit this week and do our triple feature first. So we have first in the mix, A Separation, which is our new classic for the week. Now, this was the Oscar and Golden Globe winning Best Foreign Language Film from 2011, the first Iranian film to do that. It was also nominated for Original Screenplay at the Oscars, the first non-English film in 5 years to do so. So we went into this with a good pedigree. Justin and I had seen this previously. Joe was new to A Separation. Written and directed by Asghar Farhadi, A Separation is about Nadir and Simone, a married couple in Tehran who have started the process of separating, leaving the fate of their 11-year-old daughter Terme in question, and whether or not she's even going to stay in the country or not, as Simone wants to leave Tehran. Meanwhile, Nadir hires a nurse to take care of his Alzheimer's-stricken father, and when an argument ensues between Nadir and the nurse, she suffers a fall that may have been caused by him, and her in utero baby is killed. It becomes a heated he said, she said, complete with both sides possibly lying and withholding information. A Separation is gripping and intense, and is truly the best that world cinema has to offer. The acting is great, specifically from Sarina Farhadi, who plays Terme, and I don't believe there's any relation to the director of the film, even though they've got the same last name. But the dialogue is fantastic, and the direction makes it so even we aren't really sure what's happened, but it's not so mysterious that you're disinterested. It really is a truly great film, and I gave it an A+ the first time around when I saw it, and it remains an A+ movie for me. Joe, as the newcomer to A Separation, what did you think?
All right, I'll tell you. A Separation. This movie tries to tackle some very difficult subject matter, and in a culture American audiences probably don't see it too much from. I think the greatest strength of this movie is how it dances around an occurrence we aren't entirely sure about, creating a sense of mystery and tension as to what fate awaits the characters. The dialogue is incredibly crisp, and the performances are rather exceptional. You really feel the humanity of these characters and see it as a struggle that is all too common in modern families. The movie also used some decent cinematography, which is very commendable. However, I felt that the pacing of this film was a bit off at points for me. Maybe it was because that there wasn't that much focus on too many characters at any point, keeping me from connecting with some as well as I possibly could. It's also probably a tough film to watch for some audience members, due to its subject matter. A well-done movie, but probably not for everyone. I give it an A-.
Not bad. I mean, clearly you enjoyed it and got sucked into it.
Yeah, it was good. I just felt that at certain points I was kind of losing interest. And
okay.
I felt, as I said, because there wasn't any particular amount of time focused on any of the characters for a great length of time, I didn't feel I connected with them as well as I could. But from what the writing was that actually stood, as well as the actors' performances, I thought that it was sold pretty well.
Yeah. And I know you didn't love the ending of it.
You know
either.
what?
You didn't mention that, but
thank you for reminding me. Actually, that's probably one reason why it affected my grade. I understand the ambiguous ending. I get why it was there, but for some reason, it really bothered me and frustrated me. And I kind of wanted a stronger conclusion because I felt like the film was kind of building towards that.
Yeah, it's entirely open-ended, so you do have to either get behind that or not.
There's not even a hint, really. It's
right.
Just kind of like there's two choices, and there's not even really any evidence at all as to what any real speculation is, which way she'll make the decision she's going to make at the end. So maybe that's what frustrated me, was that there was very little evidence of that. But it worked for the movie, it just didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm. Justin, what do you think of A Separation?
Separation benefits from understanding its seemingly simple concept and expanding it to the fullest possible extent. Every character has their own flaws and possible goals, and how they interact gives it a perfect human intensity. As a result, Separation becomes layered, and each in each of said layers furthers the complexity, pulling the audience in further and further. It's not always easy, as Joe put it, to watch, particularly given the subject matter, and the dilemmas can be argued both ways, which becomes frustrating but also equally realistic. This may cause unsatisfaction from the lack of any answers really provided by the ending, but it also fits well with the tone of the film. And for that, I leave A Separation with the final high A that can ever possibly be delivered for season 1.
Yeah, Justin has never given A pluses before. Joe and I both do the A plus. So starting next episode,
probably not next episode.
Well, but starting next episode, the A plus is possible.
It's an official standard.
Grade. Yeah,
yes.
I don't think he's going to give Grudge Match an A plus. But
who knows? We could be surprised.
But it is a possibility, and I'm very happy about that because
could be the next Raging Bull too.
Yeah, it could be. It wasn't though, and we'll find out about that next week.
Spoilers, though.
I'm glad you liked it as much as I did, Justin. I watch probably the same amount of foreign films as you, maybe, around 8 to 10 a year. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the very few that I've given an A+ to.
Yeah, it was really a big surprise.
It really was. I mean, I had seen it, as you probably did as well, after it had already won Best Foreign Language at the Oscars. So I knew going into it, all right, it's got a little bit of a pedigree to it. But I was just really, really blown away by it.
I was going to say, if memory serves, I believe you had actually beaten me to it, and we're actually getting on my case to watch it.
Yeah, I think I saw it first.
For the end of 2012.
And I just could not believe how good it was.
Yeah, I wasn't really quite sure what to expect from the trailer that I had seen in a couple other movies I had gotten from Sony. But this was just such a well-written, well-put-together movie.
I think that's actually why I got it. When I got it from Netflix, I didn't realize, I think at the time, it had won Best Foreign Language. But yeah, it had appeared on like 5 or 6 different DVDs in the previews, and I was like, all right, this looks like it might be interesting.
Or it could be incredibly boring. And just sort of on the base subject of it, it does seem a little bit boring maybe. But yeah, then you watch it, it's just really good. I was glued.
I'm glad we got to see that one. All right, well, up next is our old classic, and that was picked by Justin this week, and that is Hot Fuzz.
All right, so Hot Fuzz is about Nicholas Angel, played by Simon Pegg, who is a tough-as-nails cop who's so good at his job that he is making everyone else in his precinct look bad. As such, he gets sent to Sanford, a seemingly perfect little small town with no crime but a number of mysterious incidents, which prompt the attention of Nick, who eventually begins an investigation. As some may recall from my last OCT, Dan challenged me to pick a film that was not an A, and this time it was. Hot Fuzz is the second of Edgar Wright's Blood and Ice Cream trilogy, and it's arguably for me one of the most confused in terms of its actual genre. I thought this, when I originally saw this, I was hoping for a straight-up parody of buddy cop films, and instead got somewhat of a comedic murder mystery. And that's not to say that it's not effective in the said genre. It just seems a bit odd given the material, and although there's still a parody of that hard-boiled genre near the end, particularly in the funniest moment in the entire film with an over-the-top action sequence, it's still a little late in the game. Hot Fuzz is still a great comedy thriller that continues to show the fantastic chemistry with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost that I hope film never separates them, because they are truly one of the best duos in the business. And for that, I give Hot Fuzz a B+.
Not even an A-. You went all the way on it, Justin. Good job. Joe, you of course have seen Hot Fuzz before, but let's hear your take on it.
All right, no problem. You'll probably hear some echoes in this one. Hot Fuzz. This movie is probably my favorite of the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy and related films, though it is also probably one of the weaker ones. I really like Pegg and Frost's characters in this film, and their chemistry is one of the best aspects of any of their movies, as it usually is. The constantly sarcastic, dry wit and self-aware humor combined with many kooky characters makes the story rather painless to watch. What's more, as well as with the rest of their films, there is a decent character arc for the character of Angel, though perhaps not as well done as in Shaun of the Dead or World's End. The mystery is silly, but actually pretty well put together, with a pretty decent twist. Not to mention that the last 20 minutes are a ton of fun for just about anyone. The big issue with Fuzz is that it tries to do perhaps a bit too much. In addition to poking fun at buddy cop movies and action movies in general, it actually takes a stab at murder mysteries and even a bit of horror. Personally, I think it works pretty well, but I will admit the tone isn't as fluid as it is in Shaun of the Dead, since that film had a bigger focus and probably better written characters. Still, I really love this movie, and I really never get tired of it. It's fun, it's witty, and it's action-packed. I give Hot Fuzz also a B+.
All right. Well, you may hear some echoes in mine as well.
Oh my.
No, it's definitely hilarious, clever, fun, all of these things. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are extremely likable, and like you said, I mean, their chemistry is great in everything. Now, this was the second of the Cornetto trilogy that I've seen. I've yet to see Shaun of the Dead, but I enjoyed The World's End earlier this year, probably around the same scale as I enjoyed this one. I do, however, tire of Wright's directing style and some of his choices. I pointed this out as we were watching it, but the
fast-paced editing?
The fast-paced editing, yeah, and specifically when they like zoom in on something
and they have that sound effect.
Yeah, well, it gets really old.
I understand that, but that is like a style of his. I personally don't tire of it, but I could get that.
Yeah, I understand that's, one of his trademarks or whatever. I think he uses it a lot.
You might be right.
And he also used it in The World's End a lot as well. So, I'm not sure why I'm going backwards in watching the Cornetto trilogy, because I saw World's End first and now Hot Fuzz. But I've heard for almost a decade how great Shaun of the Dead is. So
I think you're working your way to the best one.
I'm sure I'll get there eventually. And I did, for the record, the first movie I saw with the pair was actually Paul.
Really?
Which I enjoyed not quite as much as The World's End and Hot Fuzz, but I did like it. I think I gave it a B.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. I ended up seeing it because I like Seth Rogen, and also Kristen Wiig was in it. I didn't know Jason Bateman was in it when I went to it, but that was a surprise.
I don't want to interrupt your review, but I'm curious. Have either of you ever seen Run Fat Boy Run?
Yes.
Only parts of it, unfortunately.
Oh, was Nick Frost also in that?
Yes, he was. A minor role, but that is also considered to be part of that little universe.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Though it's more of a drama than a comedy, exactly.
Right, and that was not an Edgar Wright movie because I believe it was David Schwimmer.
Mm-hmm, I believe so.
That's correct.
So, of the Edgar Wright movies, I've seen the two. But yeah, I've seen Paul, I have seen Run Fat Boy Run, and obviously I've seen Simon Pegg and a number of other things, including a couple movies we've reviewed here on the show already, like Ghost Protocol. But I do give Hot Fuzz as well a B+.
I thought you didn't like it that much, Dan.
Yeah, you had me worried, actually.
You were like, it was okay.
To be fair, when we saw it, it was in a double feature. And it is 2 hours long, as was A Separation. So by the end of the night, I was feeling the length of the movies a little bit. And you know me, sometimes that factors in at the time, but then once I actually get to write my review and think about my grade, sometimes they go up a little bit.
I thought it had to be pretty high because you were laughing most of the time.
It was very funny. Okay. Yeah,
it
was. So I give it around the same as The World's End, like I said, which I originally gave a B, but for the year end, I believe I have bumped that up to a B+. So they are in the same vein there. All right, finally, in our triple feature, we have the Oscar nominee A to Z. We're going through every movie that's been nominated for an Oscar in the major categories, and we are now up to Air Force, which is a 1943 film that won Best Film Editing, defeating big names like Casablanca and For Whom the Bell Tolls. It was up for 3 other artistic-type nominations, and what makes it an Oscar A to Z for us is its nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Joe, tell us about Air Force.
All right. I will. Air Force, a 1943 war film directed by Howard Hanks. This film follows the crew members of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress before and during the early days of the United States involvement in World War II. This was one of the first films to be based around the war and has often been considered a propaganda film. The movie introduces us to all the characters, from the strong captain with great responsibilities to the young rookie, the tough guy, the old mentor, and the comic relief guy. All your bases are covered. We learn all their backstories before seeing them take flight and eventually get some action against some Japanese troops in the Pacific. I'm not sure if this movie is exactly a propaganda film, at least not at first. The characters are mostly likable and human enough, and the actors give honestly decent performances. The problem is that it takes about half the film's runtime before we get to see any real action. Most of the film before that is honestly kind of boring after the first 20 minutes. When the action finally does come, it is actually rather welcome and looks really impressive for the most part. The problem, once again, is that it is shoved into the last half hour of the movie with almost no time spent on the characters at this point, making even the action scenes seem somewhat tedious eventually. The worst part is that the story actually seemed to be going somewhere after the 2 hours, but then suddenly leads into an underwhelming non-ending. The message afterwards is really just silly and solidifies the manipulative nature of the picture. It wasn't a total disaster, but rather a mixed bag. I give Air Force a C.
Justin, what did you think of Air Force?
I have a hard time considering propaganda as a movie because they ultimately end up contradicting everything that makes film an art form. Instead of creating a unique creative vision, it stretches its realism for the sake of manipulating audiences to believe a certain position. Admittedly, these films have varying forms of explicitness, but it festers in Air Force. The film reeks of cliches and drags in more than a couple spots, and it ultimately takes the audience out of the film over and over and over again with complete and utter stock characters left and right, notably the comic relief character that never ceases to annoy. However, similar to the other propaganda film we reviewed on the show, Action in the North Atlantic, the action is exciting, but it comes so ridiculously late in the game that it barely feels worth it. However, on that, and a couple decent performances that aren't entirely awful, Air Force skirts away with a C-.
For me, I do have to sort of take a little bit of an issue with the propaganda aspect of what you just said, Justin. There's no doubt this is a propaganda movie. However, I feel like how you described it is basically what documentaries are. They want you to feel a certain way. And so, to me, it is a propaganda film for sure, but you have to sort of consider how much does that actually detract from it based on the time it was made. So that was sort of my issue going into it. Now, make no mistake, I actually graded it lower than both of you. So I'm not saying I enjoyed it. I'm just saying that as an art form, it does sort of exist in the same realm as documentaries, because most documentaries do sort of have one leaning. Maybe not most documentaries, but many documentaries have one lean or the other.
I can make.
Hence why I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
That's why most people don't consider documentaries films.
Joe's the only person I know that doesn't consider documentaries.
Actually, that's
is that a big thing?
That's a wide thing.
I was going to say there are a lot of people I've met that don't consider documentaries.
I think there are movies, and I think there are documentaries.
I see.
There's a big difference.
They're both types of films,
but they're not necessarily movies.
Okay. I have never really thought about the definition difference between films and movies.
There's fictionalization and then there's non-fictionalization. I guess it's kind of like breaking down fiction, non-fiction,
okay.
how they're not the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just different types of storytelling, basically.
I understand.
That's basically the difference, really. But I was just going to make a point to kind of go along with that. I think what Dan's trying to say is that all art forms are, to varying degrees, certain forms of manipulation. They're all trying to make you feel a certain way. It's just some of them kind of go overboard, and there's a lot more of an agenda with certain films than others. And this one's obviously the case, but it's manipulative, but every movie is manipulative to some extent.
I guess that was sort of...
Or trying to be, at least.
Yeah, sort of what I was getting at with that.
I thought so.
And, I mean, you guys both said it. There's stock characters galore in this. I will say about the cliched nature of it, that this is from the 1940s, and I think...
these were probably the things.
Yeah, these were probably
cliches.
the things that the cliches are based on, when it comes to later films. I mean, you guys kind of said it all with the action. It comes really late in the game after we've all tired of everything else, especially the boring characters and the annoying comic relief and all of that. And then once the action does start, it sort of...
Gets old
really, yeah, because it keeps doing the same exact thing over and over.
One thing that annoyed me about it was there was some awesome action, as we both pointed out, but there were a couple really lazy things. Like, for instance, they did reuse a couple shots. Like, I think at least twice I saw that.
To offer a brief counterpoint to that argument, though, I've yet to see an old school war movie not do that.
that doesn't reuse.
I still think that's an issue.
I mean, even The Longest Day is guilty of that, and many consider that to be a classic.
That might be the case, but it's still annoying me. And then there was one that really ticked us off. What was it? Where they kind of painted on smoke onto the screen?
Yeah.
It was one of the worst special effects, even for that time.
Even for the 40s.
That I mean, you think about, we've seen The Wizard of Oz and The Adventures of Robin Hood were both years before this, and you'd never see anything like that in either of those movies.
It was a completely different quality level.
It was awful. It was like they just sort of painted on dots with a pen.
The sad thing is I've seen
pen.
B movies have better effects than that from the time.
Truly.
So for me, I gave Action in the North Atlantic a C-. I thought this was on a slightly lower scale, so I'm going to give Air Force a D+.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't blame you.
Not a fan.
I mean, maybe I was too generous. I don't know.
No, I mean, none of us really liked it, so I think we're all pretty much on the same page.
It was okay.
Yeah.
After 143 movies this season, I mean, what a sour note to end on.
Yeah, that's not great for our last review, but you know what? We had a separation in this, which we all gave in the A range, so I'm okay with that. All right, well, let's move into our best and worst of the year. Now, we spent a long time laboring and trying to figure out how exactly to present this to you guys. So hopefully you like what we've come up with. We're going to read half of our top 20, and then we're going to read most of our bottom list, and then most of our top 10, and then we're going to end with our very best and our very worst.
Or rather,
very worst and the very best of the year, and that's going to wrap up our show. So hopefully it's not too confusing. We'll see how it sounds, in the aftermath. But I do want to also mention a couple other things before we get started. Justin's going to start with his list first. Now these are based on, Justin and I each saw 196 films for the year that these are based on, and we will be doing an Oscar wrap up around the Oscar time for all the movies we haven't got to. There's certainly 4 that are sort of present in my mind, at least, that are maybe possibles from everything we hear, and that's August Osage County, Inside Llewyn Davis, Nebraska, and Her, that are getting these awards buzzes. We have not seen them yet. We'll be reviewing them on the show in the next month or so, but of course, as we haven't seen them, we can't add them to our list yet. So we're going to do an updated top 20 when Oscar season hits, and see if anything has changed places. Joe has also seen about 125, 130 movies for the year, so we have a lot to choose from. And Justin, we're going to start with you with our top 20.
Okay, so before I begin, I just want to address what Dan and I are referring to as the 50 theater rule. Since often in 2012, if there's a film that comes out in only a couple theaters before 2013, we will honor them for this list.
Yeah, most of them are very indie. The nearest city to us is Philadelphia. We didn't have a podcast in 2012, so we certainly weren't traveling to Philadelphia to see movies at that point. So we both sort of decided it would be fair to
include them for this.
Include them for this list. So that is included in our 196 total. But Justin, kick it off for us with your 20 through 11.
All right, here we go. Number 20, Man of Steel. After the disappointment made in 2006, Superman Returns, I'm sure many an audience was left wondering, can there be a good present-day Superman movie? Thanks to director Zack Snyder, producer Christopher Nolan, and a great leading man, Henry Cavill, the answer to that is a definite yes. The action's great, the storyline is fantastic. I'm still not entirely sure if a Justice League movie or the upcoming sequel is necessarily a good idea, but I have to say it is a great start. My number 19 is Rush. Ron Howard continues to show his talent as a director, and it doesn't stop here with his love of cars. Chris Hemsworth, who most people know as Thor, and Daniel Bruhl are fantastic as James Hunt and Niki Lauda, and the interplay between them is wonderful, and it just captures the time and spirit of racing beautifully. My number 18 is Disney's Frozen. I thought the change of the princess narrative to being a story more about siblings was awesome, and I really hope that they continue that with the next couple films that get released by them around the time of November. The songs are ridiculously catchy and memorable, and I really hope that a couple of them get nominated for Best Song at the upcoming Academy Awards. The animation was absolutely gorgeous, and it almost feels like you're literally looking at a storybook. And for that, I give it my number 18. Number 17 is Steven Soderbergh's Behind the Candelabra. Steven Soderbergh said that he was retiring earlier this year, and I honestly have to say he saved his best couple films for last. His wacky but delightfully goofy narrative about Liberace was great, entertaining, and very dramatic, particularly with the chemistry between Michael Douglas and Matt Damon, giving us really one of the best made-for-TV movies I have ever seen. My number 16 is Prisoners. I thought this was
I want to stop you right there and just point out that, yes, normally we don't do made-for-TV movies. HBO, Showtime are a little bit different from that, just in case our audience is wondering. Because you and I both saw Behind the Candelabra. Joe, you saw it as well. These are movies that are on a big-budget scale. They get released on DVD. Yeah. So... Just so the audience...
TV is a bit of a stretch. I apologize for that.
No, well, I mean, technically it was made for theaters and just didn't get released in theaters because people were afraid of it, with its moniker of the gayest movie of all time. But I just wanted, the audience to know we don't normally Lifetime movies of the
they wouldn't count.
Don't count for our bottom 10, even though they're horrible. So continue with your number 16.
All right, fair enough. Thank you for bringing that up, Dan.
Yep, no problem.
My number 16 is Prisoners. I thought this was a great, intriguing mystery. Jackman gives a fantastic performance that's well against the grain that he's normally been portrayed as being this big action hero. And I really have to give them praise for putting together one of the most ambiguous, thought-provoking endings this year in film. My number 15 is Saving Mr. Banks. I thought it was a great, unexpected story about the making of Mary Poppins that just comes together so well. The performances with Hanks and Emma Thompson, with Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, were wonderful, and watching them interact and play off each other was great. Alongside the very, very well done performance by Paul Giamatti. But the one that really caught me off guard was Colin Farrell as
he was great,
as Mr. Travers. And it just comes together so well. My number 14 is Mud, going back all the way to episode 1. Honestly, one of the biggest surprises of 2013 for me. I had heard good things about it, but I wasn't quite sure what to think about going in. After seeing it, I would happily consider it one of McConaughey's best performances, and it's just got such great polished writing that I really hope gets recognized in terms of Best Original Screenplay for the upcoming Academy Awards. My number 13 is Side Effects. That would be Steven Soderbergh's other movie that he made this year before he retires. I thought it was a fantastic homage to Hitchcock thrillers. Like Candelabra, he really hit it home, and Rooney Mara continues to stand among the best young talent in Hollywood for me. My number 12 is What Maisie Knew. I think the modern-day setting of a very classic story complemented the material very well. The cast of great characters, particularly Julianne Moore, really sold the material, and how it progresses over the entire film never ceases to draw intrigue. And my number 11 is All Is Lost. I really have to commend this movie for doing so much with so little. Redford gives a great performance while only really speaking a few lines in the actual movie. And as such, the intrigue never ceases and has some really beautiful cinematography and lighting at points that I hope gets recognized in terms of technical awards with the upcoming Oscar season.
All right, good start to the list. Definitely some repeats from what I'll have on mine. I imagine maybe some repeats from what Joe will have. I do want to say about Rush, when we originally had reviewed that, I gave it a B+. You guys graded it a little bit higher than that. When I was going over all the year-end stuff here, I did bump that up to an A-. And I am really looking forward to seeing it again.
Me too.
It got some love at the Golden Globe nominations, so an Oscar nomination might not be completely out of the question. I don't know. We talked about it here on the show, and I think all really enjoyed it. What else? Yeah, What Maisie Knew was also very good. Did not make my list, but I remember you had that very high on your best of summer list.
Yeah, and I still really stand on that.
I actually just got done watching it. I thought it was really good. I didn't have quite enough time to formulate my thoughts on it, but I do think it was a very good movie.
I was curious to hear your opinion on it. I figured you were going to be of the love it or hate it category, but
I'll talk to you about it after the podcast.
looking forward to
another really good dramatic performance from Steve Coogan.
Yeah.
Who we just saw in Philomena a few weeks ago.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, do you want to do yours? Your 20 through 11 on the top 20?
20 through 11? Sure.
Doing the best of 2013.
Well, I can tell you right now that there's probably going to be one that's on neither of your lists.
Ooh, cool.
All right. My number 20 is Ender's Game. I thought there were a lot of great performances, a lot of great effects, and it was a really, really great adaptation to a story that I thought was very difficult to adapt, and I was very satisfied with it.
Is that the one that will not be on our list?
I highly doubt
Okay.
it, but,
I think you're probably right.
But I gave it an A-, and I still stand with it.
Nice.
All right, my number 19 is Mud. Also going back to episode 1, this was a really great surprise to me. Great start to Film Fanatics. Kind of made me realize these guys had some good choices. Might want to come back for future episodes. But no, Mud was one of the great McConaughey performances. Not necessarily the best on this list, perhaps, but definitely a really good one. Really great, gripping story, as Justin, pointed out. It was really gritty, and I thought there were some really great child performers in this. They did a really good job. It was rare to see that. It was really something to behold. And my number 18 is Philomena. Recently mentioned that. Ooh. This was one that caught me off guard because I wasn't really expecting it to be something I would like, but I heard you guys give it a lot of praise, and I went into it and I really enjoyed it. It was a very heartfelt, down-to-earth story, but had some solid performances, and even though it was a bit short on the runtime, I thought it hit a lot of those points really, really well. My number 17, is Captain Phillips. Great Tom Hanks performance. Based on a true story, I thought it really brought that element to life. It was really capturing things. And those newcomers, those newcomer actors, I don't remember their names, but man, they really made a good impression on me.
Yeah,
Barkhad Abdi, I believe.
Barkhad Abdi is up for Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes.
Really?
So, maybe an Oscar for him nomination as well.
I'm kind of hoping. I really hope to see him in other things because I think he honestly rivaled Hanks if he didn't do better, as Justin pointed out. He did great.
And this is, if you don't know, Joe, this was his first ever anything.
And, he never did any
acting.
He
did an open casting call. He told the story on Conan. He did an open casting call with about 300 other Somalis, and he got the part. It was the first thing he'd ever done in his life, and yeah, he killed it.
It was absolutely wonderful. He was by far my favorite thing about the movie, but I also liked the directing. I liked the camera work. I thought it was really good. Brought the whole thing to life to me, and it was pretty gripping for the most part. My number 16 is The Wolf on Wall Street. Now, originally, I believe I gave this a B+, but in retrospect, I gave it a little bit higher of a grade because I've been seeing a little bit more of it, and it left a good impression on me. It was very entertaining. A bit rough at points, but I thought it was a very good DiCaprio performance as usual, and the little bit of McConaughey was great as well. And Jonah Hill really is impressing me more and more every time I see him. Number 15 is, as Justin mentioned, Rush. Ron Howard, great directing once again. I thought Hemsworth gave a great performance.
Oh, yeah.
As did his rival. What was his name?
Daniel Bruhl.
I haven't seen him in too many things, but he's doing a great job as well.
What was the other movie he was in recently?
The Fifth Estate.
Oh, that terrible thing.
That's probably why.
If you're not missing anything, don't watch it.
But basically, I thought his performance was great as well, and I'm not really into racing movies, but this movie utilized that to tell a much better story, and once again, something that was true, and it was just so entertaining, and Ron Howard really does know how to tell a good, solid story. Number 14 is on my list, and it is Gravity.
That is surprising, Joe.
That caught us off guard.
Yes, I will admit that I personally had some issues with it, but I can't deny how fantastic the cinematography of this really was. The special effects were fantastic, and Sandra Bullock did an amazing job. I think she's a good actress, and this is one of her best roles ever. And George Clooney, of course, did a great job for his little bit as well. It was a really entertaining movie, and I definitely want to go back and watch it again. Number 13 is Monsters University. This will probably make Dan pretty happy.
Very happy.
It's kind of sad that I almost forgot about it, but then I realized, I can't make a top 20 without this. I mean, absolutely.
It's true.
One of the great Pixars. And as I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of Monsters, Inc., but for some reason this film really resonated with me, and I thought it told a really good story. I loved the characters. I loved the animation. It was goofy, it was funny, and it was pretty impressive. I really loved it, and I've watched it several times, and I haven't gotten tired of it yet. It's definitely going to be one of my favorite Pixars. Number 12 is one we watched very recently, and that is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I think that this is probably one of Ben Stiller's best directing efforts I've seen. I loved the music, I loved the cinematography, I loved the scenery, I loved the story, I loved the characters. Was it perfect? No. But was it enjoyable? Did it have a great message and a good story? Absolutely. Number 11 is Trance. This movie was something I was very surprised about. It is something that I definitely recommend to people who really want to pay attention to the plot. It's something that would definitely you could gain a lot from many repeat viewings. I, of course, am a fan of the surreal and the cerebral, the atmospheric, and this movie has this in abundance, as well as some amazing performances and some really unique ideas. It was a great thriller, and I really enjoyed it. It took me by surprise.
Joe, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Justin and I gave Joe a big stack of DVDs the last couple of weeks and just said, here's some that we liked this year that you might be into. And I Trance was sort of one that I thought maybe you would like, just knowing you, but it is one that sort of it seems a little divisive. It didn't do that well critically.
I can understand that. Honestly, I can say this right now. I don't think this is a film for everybody.
It's not.
But if you're into thrillers and if you like thinking and if you like heavy atmosphere, this is a film you'll enjoy. And I would recommend it to people that at least want to take a chance. Well,
and you're absolutely right that you really have to pay attention to it.
I'll be honest. I had to take a few back steps because there's a point towards the middle of the film where it gets really, really condensed with all these different plot points. You're not sure what's real and what's not, what's taking place when. So you really have to pay attention. But it does come together in the end fairly well, I think.
Yeah, and this is a Danny Boyle film, who I'm a huge fan of. Slumdog Millionaire, obviously great. He's done a couple other movies that I really enjoy. So I'm glad that you got to see it. I'm glad you got to put it on your list. That's awesome. All right, well, my list, we'll start here in a second. My top 19 was very simple. They were all in the A+, A, or A-, but at one point I had considered maybe making them an A. They were all in that category. So my number 20 was sort of a question mark. Wasn't sure what I was going to do with that. There's a lot of A-, including Trance, that I thought this might be a good slot for that. Star Trek Into Darkness was another one. But my number 20 is The Spectacular Now. This was a great romance that came out very limited, but hopefully if you haven't seen it, you can catch it on DVD pretty soon. Miles Teller, I think, is a great young actor. He's been in some really terrible movies up until this one. I don't recommend 21 and Over, for example. But he's going to be in this movie called That Awkward Moment coming out shortly. And Shailene Woodley, who I love from The Descendants and now The Spectacular Now. Very, very good jobs from those guys, and just a really good story. My number 19 is Captain Phillips. This was a really good movie. I agree with everything Joe said about it. Hanks gives a fantastic performance, as do the Somali pirates. And some of the ancillary characters really do a good job here as well. And I think Paul Greengrass did a great job directing, especially when it got to the closed spaces of the ship.
That was my favorite part of it.
Yeah, the little ship. Yeah.
Great camera work there.
Yeah. My number 18 is 20 Feet from Stardom. This is one of two documentaries on my list. And this is one I touched on briefly when we talked about our best of the summer. It's a movie about basically backup singers in the industry and how they've managed to, eke a living for, decades, some of them, including Lisa Fisher, who has tried a solo career and now is the regular backup singer for the Rolling Stones. Not a bad gig if you can get it. But interviews with a lot of the stars themselves and the backup singers. Just a really, really well thought out and well done documentary. Number 17 is The Butler. And this was originally an A, but I have bumped it down to my highest of the A- on the list for the end of the year. Stacked aside some of the other movies that we've seen recently, including 12 Years a Slave and Mandela, it does have a few problems, including its running time, but certainly all the actors portraying the different presidents was really fun, and it really is just a very gripping story. My number 16 is another documentary, and it's called Stories We Tell. Now, this is actress Sarah Polley basically trying to dig up her family history of her mother, who was an actress in the 60s named Diane Polley, and who her real father is. And there's interviews with her not real father, her actual real father, all of her brothers and sisters. It's just very interesting, and I'm hoping at some point we can show this for a new classic, because I would love to be able to talk at length about Stories We Tell. It's really, really riveting. My number 15 is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I'm a huge Ben Stiller fan. We just talked about this at length on the show last week, so I don't have to say too much about it, but what Joe said pretty much speaks for it all. I mean, the cinematography is great, the music is great, the direction is spot on, and it's just a great story. My number 14 is No. This is a Spanish-language film set in the 80s during a very important Chilean vote to whether or not their sitting president should automatically remain in power for another 8 years. Now, the star of the movie, Gael Garcia Bernal, is hired by the No side to spice up their campaign and create awareness with a bunch of fun television commercials. It's completely phenomenal. It's a great movie. Joe, that is one that you got to see, right? I know we gave that to you in the stack. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll hear about it in the top 10. I don't know. But no pun intended. But for me, it lands at number 14. Its Best Foreign Language Oscar nomination was completely deserved last year. My number 13 is Gravity. Now, I had thought about putting this a bit higher on the list, but I have to say, in thinking about it, yes, it was completely stunning visually. The performances are great. However, it strikes me as a in-theater only kind of a movie. Sort of like Avatar. I thought the story in this was a lot better than the story in Avatar, but Avatar loses a lot when you watch it on a small screen. And unfortunately, at this point in time, unless maybe it's still in the dollar theaters, that's the only way we're going to see Gravity. So if it was for theaters only, I would probably put it a little bit higher. My number 12 is The Conjuring. This, for me, is the best horror movie in years. It's the true story of Ed and Lorraine Warren as the investigators, and Patrick Wilson and, I always forget her name, Vera Farmiga, just did great in their roles, and it was very, very scary. I came out of it just bawling my eyes out and shaking. So that lands at number 12. And my number 11 is Frozen. Great movie, as Justin said. All the great songs and just the great story with the princesses and everything surrounding it. And I don't know, I've seen it now about 2.5 times, and it's still very, very good. So that is my number 11. All right. Thoughts, comments?
I was actually expecting that to be a little bit lower, given the fact that I know I'm not quite sure if you liked it as much as I did it. I think we gave it the same grade. I'm not entirely sure.
Are you talking about Frozen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought you gave it an A.
Yeah. Oh,
yes.
You liked it more than me then.
My A's started at number 16. So the last 6 movies I said were all A's. I will say this about Frozen. When we originally talked about it on the show, I had said it's the best animated movie since Toy Story 3. I no longer agree with that statement, because obviously we haven't heard about Monsters University on my list yet. Frozen, I think originally I liked it more than on the subsequent viewing. It, to me, is at this point a little bit more like a Tangled, whereas, you can watch it multiple times and still got that oomph to it. Songs are still good. But for me, I saw Monsters University twice as well, like Joe did, and that's one I can't wait to see again. Frozen, if I don't see that for another couple of years, that's all right. I'm sure we'll watch it for a new classic at some point and talk about it again on the show, but that's why that's number 11. and not higher up.
Yeah, I thought The Conjuring was an interesting choice. That was a good one.
Yeah, I've had a few horrors in recent years in my top 20. Paranormal Activity 3 and Insidious both made my top 20 that year, which I believe was 2011.
I doubt Insidious 2 will be anywhere.
Insidious 2 is not coming up in my top 10. No.
Didn't think so.
But, I thought The Conjuring was it was a great throwback to old school horror movies while still being completely scary.
After a lot of thought, I did consider putting it somewhere in my top 20, but it didn't quite make the cut.
It's still by far the best horror movie that's come out this year.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think in a couple of years. I think it's better than Sinister, which I thought was the best horror last year.
In terms of being like a straight up old school horror, I would completely agree with you. In terms of originality, I'd probably give it up to Sinister.
I personally like Sinister a little more.
Okay, I can agree with that statement, yeah. But I mean, as a movie on the whole, I would give it to The Conjuring.
Maybe.
But certainly the best horror movie of this year.
I do have to say though, props for putting No on your list. I was most certainly not expecting that.
No, I originally actually did give an A-2, and then as we were talking to Jill about it recently, it just got the wheels turning again about what a truly great movie it was.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to see that again. I believe Stories We Tell is the only thing in my entire top 20 that Justin has not seen.
We'll get to it shortly.
But yeah, that's going to be one that we're going to have to talk about for the show.
Oh, no question.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to do the bottom now? The worst of the worst? Justin, we'll start with you and do 10 through 2. How about that?
Oh, boy. Even you said this one might be unpredictable.
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do for this. I mean, I know what a lot of your Fs have been, but we'll see.
Okay. Number 10 would be the horrible, yet campily hilarious, and that would be Sharknado. The only reason I'm sure this probably counts is the fact that it got a theatrical run, and it is a truly terrible movie, but it is so hilariously so, and I would unquestionably consider this the most entertaining film that I watched on this list. That said, it is still a bad movie, so I have to make it my number 10. My number 9 is The Factory, which was a 2012 film that I believe factors into the 50 theater rule. I have no tolerance whatsoever for bad writing, and this is a poster child for it. The entire twist of the film is blatantly obvious within the first 10 to 15 minutes, and the fact that they try to play it off as this gigantic, shocking thing in the finale is ridiculous. It's a completely disturbing and ugly movie, and I do not recommend it at all for anyone who has taste.
I'm not familiar with this movie.
I never heard of it.
Who's in it?
What's it about?
John Cusack, Jennifer Carpenter. It's about this guy who's trying to track down this kidnapper who's been hunting down and killing women, and eventually he gets a hold of his daughter, and it just gets really, really, really creepy. And
Is Malin Ackerman in it?
I don't remember.
Because John Cusack was in a movie with Malin Ackerman that came up on my Netflix that looked horrible.
Huh.
I'm gonna check and see if that's The Factory.
Doesn't sound like a winner.
Oh no, it's bad. It's really, really bad.
Sounds awesomely bad, possibly.
No, not even.
Oh, it's not The Factory, which means John Cusack was in 2 horrible, apparently, movies this year.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, was it The Station? Number Station?
That's what it was, The Number Station.
I saw that one, and that was 2012?
No, that was 2013.
Oh, wow. Well, if I'd known that, I might have said something. But, no, that's a pretty bad movie.
Okay.
All right, my number 8 is Jack the Giant Slayer. Now, before I go further with this analysis, for this thing, I want to go into detail that before I started this, Dan texted me 2 words that I think summarize the entire thing. Good luck. And oh my gosh, I didn't understand it until it was all too late. Bryan Singer has yet to make a good movie post X-Men, and this is among the worst. It seems to think that because it's escapist entertainment, the audience should be willing to accept that, but it just is horrible all around. The visual effects are near sci-fi level standards and has arguably some of the worst one-liners ever committed to film. It's plot hole ridden and just unbelievably ugly and campy. It is a truly, truly bad film.
For the record, I gave it a D+. I just knew that you would hate it. I didn't like it, but I knew it was gonna not be good for you.
I don't know if I gave it a grade back when I saw it, but I don't think it was horribly bad. I thought it was dumb, certainly, but not the same level you're going for.
It's like, it's way too dark for kids. It's way too goofy for adults. It's just downright sloppy.
I could see it.
It's not too good.
It's not.
It's not a good one. It's not a good one.
It's not.
Not a good one.
Number 7 is Baggage Claim. This looks and feels like a direct-to-DVD movie, and it does little to change that perspective. Its plot is completely obvious, the twists are wildly predictable, and the protagonist is so unlikable and self-absorbed, and little is done to change that. Number 6 is A Good Day to Die Hard. It destroys everything that made Die Hard 1 a great movie, and even a potentially great franchise, provided your perspective of number 4. The action is lazy, loud, and obnoxious, and even Willis doesn't seem to look like he even wanted to do this. If they make another one, I really hope they pay attention to everything that they did wrong in this one, so it does not repeat. My number 5 is The Host. The plot is completely nonsensical and is laughable at best at times. It's boring, and the acting is atrocious, and the voiceover that is nonstop throughout the duration of the film becomes overbearing and horrid at minimum. My number 4 is Scary Movie 5. It's yet another obnoxious, quote, parody movie, which apparently in this day and age means we're not necessarily parodying things, but more or less shoving as many pop culture references as we can in one single movie. The acting is horrible. The jokes are wildly unfunny and often sometimes even borderline offensive. But the reason this ends up so high on my list is the fact that there are times where I don't even think it had a budget. And it just tries to find really cheap ways to do things so they don't have to spend money. Like showing a toy car to show that they're driving.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's a horrible, horrible movie.
To speak to that, though, they do parody a lot of horror movies in that movie. I mean, Scary Movie 5 is not good by any stretch. But, I mean, they did some pretty recent parodies. I mean, they parodied Mama, they parodied Evil Dead.
But usually you do a straight-up parody. You don't just, like, shove eight different movies in
Yeah, the Scary Movie franchise is known for that, though. They always do, like, a lot of different movies
and I mean,
in one.
And I mean, at least in the first two, they had a couple funny bits, but after 2...
This is the only one I've seen other than 1. I never saw 2 through 4. So for me, I just...
It's probably better that way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I hate all those epic movie and everything like that.
Yeah. And my number 3 is Getaway. Its storyline is awful and completely pointless. Selena Gomez, that is, may very well be among the worst young talent in Hollywood that I've ever seen. Just unbelievably bad in this film. I hope she gets a Razzie. And there are so many gaping plot holes in this film, I literally do not know where to start. And for that, it gets my number 3.
When you said I hope she gets a Razzie, I really thought you were going to say I hope she gets murdered or something like that.
No.
Just the way you were talking.
I would not post... I would not say that
yikes.
On a podcast, no.
All right.
Okay, and my number 2, which I have to get my next thing for. There we go.
Next page.
Classic.
Sorry. And my number 2 is Movie 43.
Oh.
This is all around awful. The sketches could have potentially been funny, but they are often awkward and even a little bit disturbing. And any form of narrative is useless and often just brushed to the side. It's more shocking that they actually got big-name celebrities to be in this movie. It's just unbelievably bad. And for that, it gets my number 2.
I don't know who had dirt on who in that movie, but I mean, what is Kate Winslet and Hugh Jackman and Richard Gere and everyone doing in this movie? I mean, some of them, okay, Kieran Culkin, I'll give you that. But, I mean, there's a lot of A-listers in this
somebody
movie.
owed someone a favor.
Many people had somebody had dirt on, like, Hollywood's elite.
That's the only explanation.
All right, Joe, why don't we hear from you with your bottom 10 through 2?
All right. My number 10 is probably the best movie on the list because there was a big discrepancy between the C minuses and everything else. So my number 10 would be The Internship. Honestly, not a horrible movie, but honestly, a little less than average. Some okay performances, but ultimately pretty cliche and forgettable. Not really one I'd recommend. My number 9, after some reflection, looking back on it and some conversations with these guys, it's going to be Machete Kills. It's a pretty,
Nice.
It's a pretty bad movie.
Pretty bad.
I did enjoy it more than some people did, and I do still think that it was supposed to be bad, but it still could have been done better in that vein. Machete Kills is my number 9. My number 8 is Sharknado. Sharknado is, I don't know how I'd describe it. I guess some people would say it's a so bad it's good movie, and I get that, but it's one of those ones that's so dumb that unless I'm with a bunch of friends in the right atmosphere, I really can't enjoy it. I hate Sharknado. It's my number 8. My number 7, even though I do have a deep love for it in a sick kind of way, is Runner Runner. It's a really terrible movie. It's god-awful. It's dumb. There's nothing really redeemable about it except the fact that it is so dumb, and people are... Ben Affleck is sort of trying, and I think that's just kind of hilarious in contrast to everything else, but you just have to see it because it's so bad. Like, I can't... And you could tell from the trailers that it was got to be bad, but the guy that edited the trailer did such a good job. I mean, they had to connect completely unrelated events to make this movie seem good, and you know what? It wasn't good, but I was entertained by how bad it was, at least.
I'm proud of you for this list. There's some
I was going to say, I'm kind of glad
really,
Runner
there are
Runner.
actually bad choices on this list.
No, all these movies are bad. Yeah. I promise. I saw some bad ones. Number 6 is The Host. This movie destroyed me. Okay, like honestly, it looked like a really low budget, like soap opera, but nowhere near as interesting. And the dialogue was horrendous, and I just couldn't get into it. It was. I think it was unwatchable. I think it was virtually unwatchable. The only thing about it was, once again, kind of so bad it's good. I mean, there were some elements there, but that's all that's really redeemable about it. My number 5 is one that I think I was a little too easy on, and it's just one of the ugliest animated pieces of garbage I think that they've tried to schlock at kids, and that's Freebirds.
Good choice.
Freebirds was dumb, and after sitting and thinking about it, other than George Takei, there was nothing about the movie that really made me laugh. I thought the storyline was terrible. They didn't know what they wanted to do. I think they just threw this together and said, hey, Thanksgiving, why not?
And he didn't really even have any funny lines. He was just George Takei.
It was just his charisma that made it enjoyable. And that's the Time Machine. If they did a spinoff on him, I'd probably go see that. But Freebirds,
that's true.
Freebirds was really dumb and had virtually nothing good in it. And I couldn't get over how ugly it looked. I just... Thinking about that's probably what lowered it for me. Is the animation just
wasn't what attractive.
Looked terrible to me. It just wasn't attractive at all. My number 4 is R.I.P.D. I'm sorry. I hate it when they rip off movies that I love. And if you're gonna rip it off, you got to do it well. And this is the polar opposite of that. Jeff Bridges, come on, man. I know you're not desperate.
Better than that.
Justin would say you're desperate, but there's got to be another explanation. Ryan Reynolds, you can do better too. Come on, guys, this was schlock. It was terrible. No. My number 3, I once again, my grade lowered because I realized it destroyed something I also really loved from my childhood, and that was Walking with Dinosaurs. There's no excuse for no creativity in writing when you have a completely vast amount of information to pull from your own history of the world. You can make it even slightly more interesting and educational for kids. And the terrible voice acting, you don't even try to sync up the lips. I mean, even Disney's Dinosaur was far better, and that's sad. That's really sad. I'll say it again. If they had just done a documentary, it would have been 20 times better. I guarantee it. Even kids would have liked it. If nothing else, they would have looked at the cool dinosaurs. Massive, massive disappointment. Number 2 is Getaway. Getaway, what can I say? The editing in this movie just made my brain hurt. The story was incomprehensible. The acting was terrible. Ethan Hawke, what are you doing? It was horrible. It's unwatchable. I never recommend it, but it's not my number 1.
I'm intrigued and excited.
I would like to clarify something, though. I cannot say that Jeff Bridges is desperate because he still won. He still did Crazy Heart, and I believe he won Best Actor for that.
Justin,
he did.
I was joking, man. I was joking.
So yes,
It was a total joke.
Yes.
No, I know.
The running gag that will never go.
No, I mean he was not desperate. I just don't know why
Why would he do it?
Why? Maybe he was just having a good time. That's why he didn't even try to act, because he knew he was in a terrible movie. I don't know.
He does seem to like to have fun.
At the very least, that's true.
Which is probably why he did it. But
well, at least someone was having fun, because the audience wasn't. I can guarantee that.
The dude does not abide on this one.
No.
All right, well, I have not seen Sharknado. I can't imagine it not being in my bottom 10, but I didn't see it, so that one I have to deflect to you guys on.
Have some friends.
I'm sure it's awful.
Get some alcohol, get some friends over. It's a better time.
Oh, I'm sure it would have to be.
It's the only way it could be.
Yeah. All right, well, for me, my bottom is sort of similar to my top in that the bottom 9 are all Fs, and my number 10, I had to pick one of the D movies, which many were on your list. R.I.P.D. got a D from me. Machete Kills did. I think Runner did also. But the one I went with is The Counselor. Because all of the movies we just mentioned, I at least could decipher what the plot was. I had no idea what was happening in The Counselor. The acting was decent, but other than that, I don't know what happened in the movie.
You know what? I actually did consider putting it on my top 10, but I did like some of the aspects of the movie enough that I didn't see it as being that bad.
Yeah. And I know Justin kind of gave it in the middle range.
Felt pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good things. There were some
very bad things.
Very bad, very, very bad things.
And I still say, oh, no pun intended, that movie.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say that, because you're right. I mean, at least all those other movies that were bad that even we've mentioned, you probably could somewhat gather what the plot was. I feel like if they just had like 5 to 10 minutes of solid dialogue explaining what was happening, the movie would have been fantastic.
Yeah, like when you look at all of my Ds, and Baggage Claim, Justin was one of them. I at least can give you a plot synopsis of any of them. Mm-hmm. They're not good movies, but if I had to pick one D to drop down, and I did, it is The Counselor. My number 9 is Walking with Dinosaurs. I'm with Joe on this. This is the worst kids movie of the year by far. Freebirds was not much better, but Walking with Dinosaurs was just the worst of the worst. It's one of the worst kids movies I've ever seen. The mouths not moving, and then the voice over not syncing up with
atrocious dialogue.
It's so bad. And then the wraparounds with Carl Urban. We talked about it last week, so I don't need to go into it, but it's bad. Number 8, The Fifth Estate. Benedict Cumberbatch has had a great year in some really good movies. However, The Fifth Estate, in which he plays the lead, was not one of them. It's just not good. And, I said it when we reviewed it for the show. If you're going to do a biography movie, you can't just make people up. And that's what this movie did. So that's number 8. The Host is number 7 on all 3 of our lists. Joe pretty much said it. It's practically unwatchable. Justin and I had the luxury of seeing this by ourselves. We were the only ones in the whole theater. And that was for the best, because some of these movies on here, I wish we were alone in the theater so I could spout off about it. But yeah, I was yelling at the screen about The Host. My number 6 is one that divided Justin and I, and that is Only God Forgives. I'm very much anticipating Joe to watch this at some point on DVD and give us his opinion. I think you might like it.
Well, the thing is, I really wanted to watch this for this video, and I'll probably get to it once we do our Oscar show. I will definitely watch it by then, because there's a very divisive nature. It's one of those things where I've heard it's a complete garbage. I've heard it's a masterpiece.
Yeah,
I've heard both.
And reviewers are the same. Critics are the same. It's not just us two guys here. It's
I'll be honest. I was hesitant because I'm afraid. What if I put this in my top 10? Would Dan murder me?
That would hurt me. I wouldn't murder you, but that would hurt me.
It probably won't be. I mean, Justin doesn't seem to think it will be, but it's one that I may like. So I'll let you know for sure.
My number 5 is Movie 43. This is just the worst of the comedies this year. That's not true. I still have a comedy coming up. But Movie 43 is horrible. We already talked about how so many great actors are in this. We don't know. Now, what baffles me about it the most is when they were trying to defend, well, we were in it because we were only in one scene and we saw the scene and we thought that scene was funny. No, you didn't. There's not one funny scene in the whole movie, so that's a lie too. Yeah. So I still defer to the blackmail synopsis of that. My number 4 is To the Wonder. I am just not a Terrence Malick fan. I think his style is just art for art's sake, and not even art for art's sake. It's highfalutin snobbery for highfalutin snobbery's sake. I feel the same about Only God Forgives with Nicholas Winding Fenn, or what's his name? Is that right?
Nicholas Winding Refn.
Refn, there you go. With Nicholas Winding Refn. But Malick, for me, is just the worst in this regard. And To the Wonder is just not a good movie. Another one that divided Justin and I a little bit. My number 3 is A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III. Charlie Sheen is in this as the star. He stars as Charles Swan, and it is atrocious. It makes movie 43 look like the comedy gem of the year. It is so awful. I don't recommend it to anyone. I used to be a Charlie Sheen fan, by the way. This was years before his meltdown. But like when 2.5 Men first started, when he came on Spin City, I thought he was funny.
Hot
Some of his older movies. Yeah, Hot Shots, his scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Classic. But the last maybe like 6-7 years, I've just kind of turned. I stopped watching 2.5 Men after about 2 years.
It's kind of devolved a bit.
Yeah, he's just awful, and the movie is not good. Not good is a double negative. The movie is not good. My number 2 is Spring Breakers. Now, a lot of people may have thought this was my number 1 worst of the year, and I certainly was wishing that Justin and I were alone in the theater that day, because I was bottling up my rage for this film. But I do have to say, and this is, I guess, the reason Justin didn't give it an F, he gives it a D. At least it was trying something a little bit different. None of it worked. Let's not mince words. But I guess they were going for something, and even though it was stupid and terrible...
Does that mean you're giving some points for originality?
Over what my number 1 is, yes. They're both Fs, and they are both horrible, horrible, horrible movies. But I had to decide somehow which to make my least favorite of the year. So I went with, well, at least there's something a little bit that they're trying in Spring Breakers. Yes.
At least it wasn't that, right?
Yeah, at least it wasn't that. You probably thought that was going to be my number 1.
I had a couple thoughts, yeah.
I thought it was.
I'm surprised Charles Swan III made it on the list. I heard it was a bad movie, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
Let me put it to you like this. It's the least funny movie of the year by far. 12 Years a Slave was funnier than Charles Swan III. Let's just say that.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's bad. Neither of you have seen it. I don't recommend it. Because when we do the Oscar wrap-up, we're only going to review our top 20s. We're not going to revisit the bottom 10s.
No point.
So there's no point. I'm not going to watch Sharknado. You're not going to watch Charles Swan III. Everybody will be happy.
Sounds gloriously bad,
yeah, it's terrible. All right, so Justin, I'm excited. Now we're back to the good movies. We're going to hear your 10 through 2.
Enter Justin's best of the best.
Okay, here we go. Number 10 through 2. My number 10 is one that Dan already talked about, and that would be No. It was up for Best Foreign Feature, and deservedly so. The look is so authentic, it honestly resembles a documentary, and it could have fooled me. It gives great performances, particularly from Gael Garcia Bernal. Did I say that right?
I don't know.
Anyways, it gives great performance. Sorry, good.
Gael Garcia Bernal.
Let's try that again. Okay. It gives great performances, particularly from Gael Garcia Bernal, and it really helps complement a story about changing the world through media.
I totally thought it was a documentary when I saw the preview for it.
Yeah.
Because the way it's shot, which was a brilliant choice.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. My number 9 is Fruitvale Station. It has a phenomenal performance by Michael B. Jordan. I really hope he gets a lot more things after this. Like Dan, I'm hoping that awkward moment actually turns out to be pretty good. It looks funny, but who knows? I thought this was a very raw and realistic movie, and the ending is so downright devastatingly sad and frustrating. It just completely is one of the most powerful films of 2013. My number 8 is Gravity. Now, while everyone kind of praises the 3D for this, I thought the narrative and the performances were really the star of the show of this film. I think it's by far my favorite Sandra Bullock performance, including The Blind Side, as I stated when we talked about it in October. And it really just tells an intelligent and intriguing narrative in about 90 minutes that could easily be viewed for future analysis in multiple viewings afterwards. My number 7 is the documentary How to Survive a Plague. I thought it gave a really deep and elaborate look into the fight for AIDS medication, and it really shows the heroes and villains from the frustrating way people have really tried to push the agenda. And despite these frustrations, it really does show how much progress has been made and how much further it really has to go. My number 6 is Philomena. It's just a well-told story with really great characters. Obviously, Steve Coogan is fantastic. It's a really great change of pace from Judi Dench's much more serious characters like playing M in the James Bond franchise. Obviously, she won't be doing that anymore, but I'm sure she's going on to bigger and better things. And it's just a really, really well-told, really well-written story that honestly never drags within its kind of short running time, which I think you both mentioned you kind of wish was a little bit longer.
Yeah, I could use another 10 minutes.
Yeah, we want to expand on that whole religious subplot.
Yeah. Number 5 is Dallas Buyers Club. I thought this was just a great story with great characters. It's by far my favorite Jared Leto performance, and his interactions with McConaughey are phenomenal. It doesn't hold back, and the result gives the audience an honest look at the early days of trying to get medication for the AIDS virus. What's interesting about this one was, on the show I gave it an A, but upon reflection and just thinking about how well McConaughey plays this flawed and kind of morally split character, it just comes together so well, and I actually moved it up to a, I'm just going to say it because we're heading into season 2, A+.
Good job.
Our little boy is growing up.
I'm so excited.
Moving on.
All right, my number 4, and I'm sure Dan's going to argue with me heavily about this, and it is Side by Side. The conflict between digital and versus 35mm film is a very prominent debate in cinema, and it really begs the question of, is a movie a film even when it's not exactly a film? The host of the documentary, Keanu Reeves, really shows how much he knows about the subject matter and really presents both sides of the argument so well, and looking at how it's impacted the past, present, and potentially the future of cinema as we know it.
Yeah, by far my least favorite on your list so far.
I didn't see it, but I believe I heard something positive about Keanu Reeves from Justin.
Yeah, dare we say
it. Pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool.
It's really awesome to see how much he knows about this.
That's cool.
But moving on to my number 3, which is 12 Years a Slave. Director Steve McQueen amazed me with Shame, as we talked about earlier on the show, and he's done it again, and I would happily argue even better. The entire ensemble gives phenomenal performances, and I hope at least half of them get some degree of a nomination. The great story of fighting to retain hope in a hopeless situation just fits the bill so well, and I really, really would love to see this take home more than a couple awards at the upcoming Oscars. And my number 2 is one that I really hope doesn't end up getting snubbed at the Oscars, but I don't think it's entirely unlikely. And that is Short Term 12. I thought this was just a great, realistic story that hits home so well. Brie Larson gives one of the year's best performances, and I really hope she gets at least some recognition for her role as Grace in the film. And I thought it was just a film that's almost as equally as funny and touching as it is tough to watch and heartbreaking at times. I was borderline tears near the third act. And for that, I have to make it my number 2.
I was correct about my guess for your number 1. It's Freebirds, obviously.
Yeah, whatever do you mean?
I can't wait for you to tell us how great Freebirds is.
Absolutely.
Other than Side by Side, that's a great list. So you'll hear a lot of repeats on my top 10 as well. Joe, let's go to you.
All right. Into the best of the best. All right. My number 10 is Disney's Frozen. I moved this one up because as I was viewing it, I realized that this was a great throwback to some of the classic animated 2D films that I loved and were a big part of my childhood, and this really kind of is on that level, and it gives great performances from the voice acting. The music is really quite great. The animation is stunning. It tells a good story and does something really original, unique, and really amazing with it. And I have to say, I give them huge props for the twist. Not saying I've never seen it done before, but in a Disney movie with princesses, really got me, and I thought that was pretty daring, bold, and enjoyable. It's a really good movie. I think it's going to go down as a classic, and I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I could definitely own that one. My number 9 is Disney's Saving Mr. Banks. This is also, a great film kind of detailing the story of one of the great films of my childhood, of many people's childhoods, and hopefully many more childhoods in the future. And I think it was a very honest story, telling this once again, and there were great performances. We talked about that already. Phenomenal story, especially, Colin Farrell, also great surprise.
Great.
Everything about it was good. It really held together very well. Yeah, a little nostalgic, but it works for me. My number 8, you guys are going to see this on the list eventually. And of course, that's Star Trek Into Darkness. Big Star Trek fan. Of course, couldn't have the top 10 without it. Very good. Maybe not quite as good as the first film, but it was engaging. It was enjoyable. The actors did something really great. The writers did something different with the characters, kind of bringing something new and fresh while I think remaining relatively true to the source material. And I'm looking forward to future installments. It still got me pumped up. It's a really great fun ride for any Star Trek fan and for people that aren't necessarily Star Trek fans at all.
I so much wanted to put that on my top 20. I really did. It was on and off number 20 so many times.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm sure it was
a great movie.
Tough one. It's a very good one.
And the original was in my top 10 for that year.
Hey, Trek fan, I gotta represent.
That's right.
I got to. My number 7 will make you both happy, and that is No.
Nice.
Wow.
No was a fantastic film. I thought that it really showed something really unique because it showed how advertising really plays a big part in politics, and particularly in something that really happened in Chile with the revolt and with the revolution, and trying to kind of wrestle and take freedom back in a relatively diplomatic way while still kind of playing a little dirty around the edges there. But it was a really great human story, and it was very well told, and did have that documentary-esque aspect to it that I did enjoy.
Yeah.
It was very real. And
that does make us happy.
It did, and I knew it would. My number 6 will probably surprise you guys, but I think it's probably my favorite science fiction film of the year, and that would be Elysium. Elysium was a great atmosphere for me. I loved the world it created. I think Matt Damon gave a great performance. It was really quite amazing. For a second directorial film, I think Blomkamp did an excellent job. Maybe not quite as good as District 9, but it was incredibly solid. And of course, Jodie Foster, for the little time that she was in, she played a great villain. And, I just really, really found it fascinating. I loved this movie. More and more I think about it. Elysium is my number 6. Number 5 is a comedy, and that would be World's End. I'm not sure how I feel about it in terms of the other ones because I love them all so much, but I think World's End quite possibly could be my favorite of the bunch.
Wow.
I really, really liked what they did. I thought that in terms of character writing, I think that Wright did something really, really different. He really made them, I think, more human and believable, and I think he told a really amazing story, and it was really funny. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I'm actually surprised that wasn't on your top 20, Justin.
I only give it a B+. Everything on mine was A- or higher.
Okay.
That's not to say it wasn't a great movie. I'm actually really looking forward to watching that again. It's just couldn't make the list.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make the cut. All right, my number 4 is Man of Steel. This is by far the best superhero film of the year, and I think that, as Justin said, if DC plays their cards right, this could be a great foundation to a very good franchise. Possibly enough to rival Marvel, once again, if they play their cards right. But nothing else. I think Man of Steel, though it divided people, for the people it did work for, it was a great Superman film, a modern Superman film, and it was quite amazing.
I only gave that one a B+, but I do agree that it's the best superhero movie of the year.
Awesome. My number 3 is 12 Years a Slave. This movie, you said it best, Justin. I mean, it does amazing. Directorial was great. The cinematography was beautiful. The music was fantastic. The story was well-paced. The writing was solid. Acting was phenomenal from pretty much everybody, and it definitely deserves some nominations, if not some wins. I mean, if it doesn't get them, I think that would be an outrage. And my number 2 for the year is Prisoners. I think that this was probably the best psychological thriller I've seen in a long time. I think Hugh Jackman gave one of the best performances I've ever seen. I think Jake Gyllenhaal did a pretty darn good job as well. It was very layered. It kept me thinking, a lot of twists and turns. It was very haunting, chilling, disturbing, and it left me quite affected. If you like thrillers, Prisoners is the one for you, and it's probably one of the best written ones I've seen in a long time.
Very nice. Good list. And why not bookend it? Because my number 10 is also Prisoners.
All right.
I think it was a great, great movie, and like you said, I mean, what a thriller. And Justin pointed out, you know, in his synopsis of it, that the twist ending was great, and the open-ended nature of it was just very, very cool. Yeah, it was just so gripping. It was a little bit long, but you didn't feel it.
Not at all.
You know, it was what, 2:20 or 2:15
I think
or
it
something.
was longer than that. Even
it was
2:30, I think.
You didn't feel it at all.
I was engaged the whole
I was
runtime.
engaged the whole time, and you're absolutely right. You know, Hugh Jackman really gave a great performance.
He really sold it for me.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I will say though about what you said, Justin, is he's more known for his like action roles and stuff, but he is just about the most multi-talented actor out there. I mean, between Les Mis,
Oh, no question.
and
Movie
you know,
43.
Well, let's you know what?
Let's forget about movie 43.
You had to bring it back up.
I mean, he's quite diverse. For
I
sure.
was gonna say his stage performances.
No, but I think what
But
Justin
hosting the Tonys
was probably getting at was, you know, Wolverine. He's pretty much become known for being Wolverine in recent years.
And even
I
he
guess
sort
so.
of admitted that.
But I mean, his Oscar nomination is for Les Mis, so I think he's certainly
Oh, no.
well-rounded enough. I wouldn't be, well, maybe in a different year he could have been nominated for Best Actor for Prisoners. I don't think it'll happen this year because
Probably
the
not.
competition is way too fierce. But it is a fantastic performance, and you're right, so is Gyllenhaal's. My number 9 is definitely going to be the most divisive on my entire list, and you guys, I think, both kind of enjoyed it, but just in general, and that is Oz the Great and Powerful. I love this movie. Wizard of Oz, of course, is my favorite of all time, so I was a little bit hesitant going into this. I was excited, but I didn't want to get my hopes up because what if it was terrible? For me, it was not. It was fantastic. A lot of people had gripes about Mila Kunis in it and how she played the role. I thought she was really, really good. And I thought she, just like when we saw Black Swan and she sort of stepped outside of her wheelhouse a little bit, she did it again here, and I thought it really worked. My number 8 is Fruitvale Station. I agree that Michael B. Jordan is a great up-and-comer, Justin. I hope that there's not too many great actors this year in the ranks, because he definitely deserves a Best Actor nomination.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot, obviously, that are going to be in the mix, but his portrayal of Oscar Grant was heartbreaking and touching and funny and just the whole package. My number 7 is the long-awaited Monsters University. It was going to be on my list somewhere. I mean, the way it just tackled college life so precisely, even though these aren't even people, they're monsters. They are people. You know, just like the Toy Story people aren't toys, they're people.
Well, that's what Pixar does best.
And you're absolutely right. That is what Pixar does best, and that's why I do have that slightly higher than Frozen on my list. My number 6 is Dallas Buyers Club. Fantastic performances once again all around. Matthew McConaughey's Ron Woodruff is just amazing. It's certainly his best performance. Jared Leto, of course, his best performance, although I do like him in a lot of things. He gives a great job here as well. That's one that we talked about on the show and I gave an A. I don't quite bump it up to an A+, but it's like right there on the cusp. My number 5 is American Hustle. Sad to see this wasn't on either of your guys' lists, but I knew I liked it more than you did, so not entirely surprising. But, we talked about this just a few weeks ago, so I won't go into too much detail, but great performances, a really great capturing of the time period with the set pieces and the hair and just everything in American Hustle I thought was good. Number 4 is Short Term 12. Brie Larson and Caitlin Dever give fantastic performances. Unfortunately, Justin, I fear that this one will be overlooked at the Oscars. I know Entertainment Weekly's been pulling for it very hard. Maybe something in the screenplay realm
I was going to say
be awesome.
It's going to be a crying shame.
But it's just not a movie that a lot of people saw because it just didn't get the right marketing push. But it is one that now that it'll be out on DVD pretty soon here, I think everybody should check out. If there's one takeaway I think from this podcast and doing our best ofs, it's Short Term 12 and No. They're two fantastic movies that I think unfortunately just aren't really in the conversation because not a lot of people know about them.
Right.
Did you have 12 Years a Slave at number 3?
I did.
Well, that makes it 3 in a row. My number 3 is also 12 Years a Slave. Now, when we first talked about this on the podcast, I specifically said in my review for it that it's probably an A+ film, but that I was giving it an A- because of my own comfortability factor. About half of my grades do factor in my own personal enjoyment, and to be honest, it isn't a movie that I necessarily enjoyed, but let's be real, it's a great movie.
Fantastic.
And it's one in that pantheon of Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan that it is hard to watch beyond belief, but you kind of do need to watch it. If you're a movie fan, you owe it to yourself, no matter how hard it is to get through, to see 12 Years a Slave. And I do think that probably the Best Picture race is going to be between that and Gravity, just based on what I think each will be nominated for and how I think the Academy likes to vote. I think those will be the two front runners. My number 2 is Mud. For a long time, this was my favorite movie of the year, but it does slip down to number 2 here at year's end. And if we were doing this podcast 3 years ago and somebody said to me, I bet all 3 of you will have 2 Matthew McConaughey movies in your top 20 at the end of the year, I would have said they were crazy. But really, as we've talked about between Dallas Buyers Club and Mud, when we've reviewed both of them on the show, he has really made a great turnaround the last couple years. I think his performance is probably better in Dallas Buyers Club than it is as Mud, but for me personally, I think Mud is just a better film. The child actors, as Joe pointed out, are fantastic, and I think Mud is another one that if you have not seen, do yourself a favor and check it out. It is on DVD now. All right, Justin, we've got the worst and the best. Should we do a round robin on the worst and then round robin on the best?
I think we should.
All right. Sounds good. Justin, what is your least favorite movie of 2013?
All right.
I actually don't know the answer to this. I have a couple guesses.
All right. Well, let's see if you're right about it. My number 1 would be the awful Tyler Perry's Temptation, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor.
I forgot about that one. I thought you were going to go Medea, but yeah, you hated Temptation.
Oh, wow.
It is an absolutely lazy, borderline hateful script that I just could not get behind. The acting is abysmal, particularly from whoever's idea to put Kim Kardashian in this was atrocious. It's melodramatic, it's plot hole ridden, it's sloppy. It is quite possibly the most infuriatingly bad movie I have seen all year, and for that, I give it my number 1 worst of 2013.
Here's what is funny, because Kim Kardashian on paper really is the worst actress of the year, even though she wasn't like a huge part of the movie, but she was in enough scenes that every time she came on the screen you wanted to shove nails in your ears. But to her credit, she doesn't actually have any formal training, so I'd still at least give it to Selena Gomez. But putting Kim Kardashian in anything is never a good idea.
No.
So I do have to get behind that. Yeah, Temptation was truly awful. That was one on my D list. Joe, what is your least favorite of the year?
Well, generally I steer clear from Tyler Perry. My number 1 worst movie of the year is one that you guys both mentioned, and that would be movie 43. I think this was complete garbage. It's virtually impossible to get through. I think it was a prank to pull on the audiences.
I think it was.
I think it was because it's serious. I don't think that any sane person could think that these ideas were funny. I mean, they're disgusting, they're offensive, they're dumb, they're not creative. They're just bad. They're really bad, and I expected a lot more. I mean, it seemed like a genuinely interesting concept, and we got something that was just terrible. It's something I would not recommend to anybody. It was a complete waste of time, and it's my worst movie of the year by far.
And there's such a difference between, gross out humor that is funny. I mean, like we saw in Bad Grandpa, there was some gross humor in that.
There were.
But it was really funny.
It was.
Some of it.
Some of it was.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What's interesting about movie 43 in terms of part of the reason I really didn't like it was the plot synopsis I read online actually sounded interesting.
Exactly.
The problem was the plot synopsis was not of said movie.
It wasn't. It was a complete, wrong advertisement. It was a lie.
Well, they had two separate movies, and the UK got one wraparound, because what we saw was two people basically holding a studio exec hostage while, spewing these really awful ideas to them. But UK and maybe the rest of the world, I don't know, got a completely different subject for the interspersing of the scenes. It was awful all around.
Just horrible.
The way I heard it was about these kids trying to find this really bad movie called Movie 43,
yes,
which is where it
that's
got
what
started.
I heard.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Was not that. We
That's
found
what we
which
saw.
was
Not at all.
No, we found the bad movie.
Yes.
We found it.
Yeah, we did.
There was no mystery.
And it was bad indeed. And my number one worst of the year, Justin, what do you think?
The Host?
I already talked about The Host.
Not Spring Breakers. Oh, God.
What's the other one?
Getaway? No.
My least favorite of the year is Getaway.
Oh.
Truly, truly an awful movie.
Truly bad.
Selena Gomez in my bottom two for the year. I don't know what there is to say about this movie that we haven't already said because it's so horrible. But you can see why at least Spring Breakers, they're about equally horrible. But at least, and you didn't see Spring Breakers, but at least it was trying something. Getaway has just beyond every cliche in the book. The action was horrible. The story was even worse. The acting was putrid. It's a stinker. All right, Justin, let's hear your favorite of the year.
All right, spoiler alert. My number one is, what a shock, Before Midnight. It's been 10 years since the last installment, and it paid off. The chemistry between Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy is unquestionably as good as it's ever been, if not better, and they just give such relatable characters that leave me both anticipating and somewhat dreading where they may end up in the next chapter.
It's a good number one. That was an A- for me, one that I briefly considered putting in my number 20 slot. Obviously, you have a little more attachment to these characters than I do. I've not seen any but this installment, but I did really enjoy it.
I'll be honest, there's one point you made post-screening that I think sums up my entire love of the movie. After Dan and I had saw it, obviously he had never seen it, and I wasn't sure if he was going to be a little reluctant to tell me about it for the sake of not wanting to hurt my feelings, so I just gave him this straight up, tell me how you feel. And one point that he made was, I've been in those arguments, and in those times I'm more often than most the Julie Delpy character, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that bummed me out, though, because she's kind of psychotic.
She is a little bit.
But she is she's
good
certainly...
reason.
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
that's fair.
sometimes.
They're flawed characters.
They are flawed characters, and that makes them human characters, which is sort of my point on the Spectacular Now. I mean, for me, the Spectacular Now is more of like the Before series 20, 30 years
prior
ago. Yeah, I mean, these kids are fresh out of high school, whereas, what's cool about the Before series is that, they're following the same characters, and it's, 20 years later now since the first one, or maybe even more?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, so, I do, I'm not surprised it's your number one, but it's a good choice. Joe?
Well, I saw that coming, but I specifically avoided because I want to see the other films before I judge it because I feel I appreciate it more. But I definitely will check them out in the near future. I know that's going to happen.
Yeah, we should definitely try and do that before the Oscar revisit.
I know how much Justin likes those movies, so I do want to give my opinions on them for certain. But
yeah, and who knows? Seeing the other two might have me put it in my top 20. Yeah,
could very well for me as well.
Yeah.
But for now, my number one of the year, 2013, is Dallas Buyers Club. This was, honestly, by far, I think it's Matthew McConaughey's best performance. He just carried this movie. He sold this really very human, very flawed, and not entirely likable character all the time, but, you really got behind him. You felt for him. And the other actors did a great job. Jared Leto, amazing. Jennifer Garner did a really good job as well. The story was really poignant, and it didn't really pull any punches. It was well shot. It was well paced. I loved the music. Loved the atmosphere. I just loved everything about this movie. I did not have any problems with it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I have no problem saying that it's my number one of the year. It was a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it.
Justin, where was Dallas Buyers Club on your list?
I believe that was number 5.
Number 5. Yeah, it really says something that it is in all of our top 10s. I believe we've had a lot of repeats in top 20, but other than 12 Years a Slave, it's the only movie that's in all 3 of our top 10s. So I think that really says something about its strength. Yeah, and that didn't get a huge theatrical run. It was only out a couple of weeks in wide release. So if you're listening and you missed Dallas Buyers Club, that's one to definitely check out before Oscar season. All right, well, my number one is Saving Mr. Banks. We just reviewed this on the show last week, so I don't have to go into too much detail, but it's a phenomenal movie. I do think that as a standalone movie, if you're not familiar with Mary Poppins that much, I do think it loses some of its impact. My little brother, who's only seen Mary Poppins once a long time ago, didn't really appreciate it as much as me and my friends have, and my parents. It is a true tearjerker for the year. I think the performances were great. I would love to see Emma Thompson, like we talked about last week, get a Best Actress, not only nomination but an award for her portrayal of P.L. Travers. And it's funny because if you look at my top, let's say 15, because Frozen was number 11, there are 4 Disney movies on there. A lot of people want to complain about, the Lone Ranger was terrible, Disney, Yeah, they took a crap with Lone Ranger, it's true. But I'm sorry, for my money, for family entertainment, Disney is absolutely still the place to go. If you look at all the animated movies this year, the only one that made all 3 of our lists was Frozen. The only other one that made anybody's list was Monsters University, and that was, Disney via Pixar. So, when I first gave Saving Mr. Banks an A+, I was actually a little bit hesitant. And I thought, I don't know if it really deserves an A+. And then Justin and I took a second viewing of it just a few days later, and for me it was cemented. It's just a fantastic movie. I actually can't wait to see it a third time. So that's it. That's our best and worst of the year. If there's some out there that you have not seen, definitely take a cue from our lists. If they're not out on DVD yet, a lot of these will be out on DVD very soon. Short Term 12 included. What else? 20 Feet from Stardom may be out already. I'm not sure.
It's getting there.
Yeah, it's getting there. Fruitvale Station will be out very soon on DVD. So a lot of good choices there. Next week we'll return with our usual format. We're going to start Guilty Pleasure Month for our old classic, which is going to be very exciting. Justin's going to give movies A+, which is also going to be exciting. Again, probably not next week with the the slate of movies,
but soon, hopefully.
We've got so far, but soon, hopefully. Joe, anything new and exciting on the Merlin page?
Well, I'm still gathering questions for my Q&A. Other than that, I've done some watching of some anime series just for fun with friends, and I put them on there. Other than that, nothing really new to speak of.
Yeah, there's a brand new, or maybe it's not new, but new to you anime series that you were reviewing on that. What's I forget the name of it. I hadn't heard of it before. There's an anime series you just reviewed recently.
Oh, well, my bride the mermaid.
Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, it was a ridiculous series, but yeah, I did make it first impressions that a while ago. It was very silly, but it was enjoyable. I liked it.
Good. Yeah, I'd never heard of it before. I thought, well, that's interesting. So
it's a more obscure one, but
decided to check it out.
It's a comedy. It's pretty random.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we would love to hear from you guys listening with your best and worst. Let us know on the comment section of YouTube here, or you can always add us on Facebook. We're at Film Fanatics with an exclamation point. That's the group there. And our Twitter is Film Fanatics Pod, or at Film Fanatics Pod. So thanks for listening. This has been the Best of 2013 show. We'll see you back here next week. Bye.